is close to 3:30. We'll call this committee meeting to order. My name is Dave Engen. I'm the vice chair of the commission and I happen to be the chairman of this particular committee. So that's why I'll be chairing it today. And commissioners are part of the committee. Commissioner Rusted, I believe will not be here in person, but he may be joining us by Zoom. So we'll just watch for him when we go along. We are not going to have two agenda items today. If you saw an agenda that had a second item that dealt with building issues, Bill Machewski's department, that's going to be taken up at the county commission meeting, the first one in February. So we'll be just talking about the issue of the county administrator or the reclassification of the director of administration position. At the outset, you should know this is not going to be, the supervision of managers by the county administrator is off the table. That will not happen. It's that way in some counties. It doesn't need to be in smaller counties. It doesn't need to be that way here. And Mr. Ford was not asking for that. It showed up in an initial draft, but he'll tell you himself in a few minutes. What we want to do is we want to look at the changing nature of the job that started out as just a coordinator's position. Town board has been the BRIC coordinator. That was base realignment impact committee early on. Now the name has changed. And he was EUL coordinator, government relations coordinator, and another coordinator job description that I lost in my notes. So it's changed several times over the years. And it's because we keep asking him to do more things. We are all part-time commissioners, and most of us have full-time jobs. So we can't be here all the time to answer those questions. So he has taken on lots of things that we ask. Certainly a lot of things with the air base, with the BRIC committee, Brand Sky. He's on the area association of area defense communities, which is a nationwide organization involving air bases and other military bases. And he's now one of the senior officers in that. I think, are you going to be vice chair this year? In a year or so?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, yes, I've been nominated to be the vice president.
And then you might be the president following you.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
he does all kinds of things that he didn't anticipate when he started working here as the person who just worked with BRIC. So we need to take a look at that job description. And for those of you who are managers, we may need to look at job descriptions in your areas. And we want to work with the job descriptions in all of the areas in conjunction with the salary study that was done some time ago. Because as you know, in many of our departments, our people are starting out at lower salary positions than they might in the private sector. We are limited, as you know, to income from property taxes, and the budget is tight every year. And this committee, the Administrative Services Committee, looks at the budget every year. Those of you who are managers know that you come to us and talk about what you need, whether you need more people, and we try to do the best we can. But, you know, the money only goes so far. So we are going to study this. We are not going to make any rash decisions. And in your own departments, this particular issue, we hope will not affect you personally. And, you know, at this point, we'll just get started with the discussion, but Mr. Ford has a short thing he'd like to say, and then I'll turn it over to Chairman Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Administrative Services Committee. Just some brief remarks. I'm not suggesting a restructure of county administration. What I've requested is simply a review and reclassification of my job to accurately document the duties, expectations, and responsibilities that I perform. and have been performing since I was reclassified to Director of Administration. I do not want department head oversight, nor am I interested in department head oversight. Also, I am not interested in usurping anyone's responsibilities or duties. I would also like to address a memo which I provided to Chair Ross and Commissioner Ingen, which was distributed among county department heads and other employees. The memo that I'm referring to was meant for a specific audience, the chairman and my portfolio commissioner. It was a recap of a discussion had among the three of us. Any person reading the memo would take the contents of that memo completely out of context. I meant no disrespect to any of my peers, nor was it a criticism of anyone here at the county. What was proposed in the memo wouldn't have affected county employees other than my thoughts regarding the salary survey. Those thoughts are not a criticism of our human resources department in any way. That was a conversation where I suggested possibly working with human resources to analyze the salary survey and attempt to bring some suggestions and recommendations to the board for consideration and nothing more. I have filled 4 different roles since 2014, and I have been reclassified 3 times as my position consistently evolves into what it is today. To reiterate my earlier comments, this is simply a request to reclassify for what I hope is the final time. My job to document the duties and responsibilities that I perform with no desire for department head oversight. Thank you.
Mr. Ross, well, the memo that Mr. Ford talked about was sent to us as chair and vice chair. And in the past, I personally have asked Mr. Ford back 2 years ago and since then to remind us on the commission of the various things that we have him doing and what the responsibilities he has. He speaks for the county in lots of things because we aren't there. So he does continually communicate. I get more emails from him than from my kids by a long shot. And he does keep us informed. But this is the time to take a look at this, and Chairman Ross is interested in that. I think the rest of the commission is as well. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Egan. I too feel very strongly for Mr. Ford to be the administrator. He has done a lot for this county. He does more right now than is what's on his old job description. And I think a lot of what has happened at the base, Grand Sky, our relations with the Pentagon, with other air bases, has all come about because of Mr. Ford. Now, I do not want to sit here and say, okay, we need to decide this right now. We are not going to do that. What I would like to do is I would like to appoint a committee which will consist of myself, Commissioner Ingen, Haley Wamstead, the state's attorney, and Michelle Thiel. We will sit down and we will look at the things that Mr. Ford does to see if we can come up with a job description that would fit the administrator position. Now, I want to assure the county employees, and all of you know, for 40 years, I was where you are right now. I have never let you down. I have been on employee relations, trying to get more wages and everything for you, and I will not let you down now. So I will keep digging and pursuing to try and get the pay scale where it's supposed to be. Even as sheriff for 8 years, as Andy Schneider's going through right now, if the wages are less in the sheriff's office than they are with the PD. And I fought for it for 8 years. Dan Hill did it for 20 years before me. And we're going to keep fighting. And that's not only for the sheriff's office, that's for all county employees. So I just want to assure you that what we do with this administrator position is not going to involve department heads. And I will work to find some kind of a way that we can get the salaries up to where they should be. All All right, any questions from
Mr.
anybody?
Chairman,
Yes,
members of the commission, I just wanted to say, Mr. Ford, I was the one who sent that out because it was a public record that was presented at a public meeting. And I did that, and in the job description, it said you would supervise the department heads. So it wasn't a rumor, it was actually in there. That's why I did it.
I'll just say, Mr. Chair, it was in the job description. It doesn't mean I was advocating for that. That's all I'll say.
as this committee gets together, we will evaluate, and it will not be in the job description. Yes,
Comments from the commission first?
Mr. Chair, one of the things that you had mentioned earlier was the salary study. And I know that there are many employees across the county that are not getting paid comparable what's available in the private market and the federal market and state market. We need to address that. That has been on the table for, we did that in 2021, and we had done it about 6 years prior to that. We really need to look at that. I don't disagree that we need to look at a director of administration, whether it's the same position, a different position. I think it's fair to look at what responsibilities Mr. Ford has at this time and future staff members. I think that it's important that we continue to do that throughout the county. Law enforcement, county roads and bridges, social services, it's always been a concern. Now with the zone, we have more state employees than county employees at social services. As we move forward, I think the state is talking about a dramatic or a nice increase for the state employees. In the past couple of sessions, it's been 2 or 3%. Around there, maybe a little less. And I feel that, you know, on the docket for today, there were 2 specific positions. Well, in respect to one of my assignments, which is human resources, this is not just a, we want to work on this one and this one.
Right,
We need to look at all of them. And I know that this is going to cost the county money. Not only the wages that the employees get, but also the fringe benefits. As we increase wages, we also increase FICA. And FICA is half paid by the employee, half paid by the employer. We know that's going to go up. We know that we need to take care of our people. We have how many employees, Ms. Thiel?
Approximately 320.
About 320 employees, and these people are very, very important. We don't want to play the game where we hire an employee, they come to work for us, using the example of law enforcement, they get trained, they get experience, and then they move on to a different position because they know they're going to have a better increase in pay. And we can't continue to do that. It costs a lot of money to train people. Social services, it's a revolving door. And the problem with social services is they just don't start and get trained in within 6 months. It takes 18 to 24 months to train someone in social services. That's about a $20,000 or $30,000 cost by the time you advertise, by the time you review the applications. Hopefully some come in and you do interviews. It isn't a quick get it done, hire somebody. The problem is they're coming in at entry level and they're leaving before they even have the full 18-month experience, because it's way cheaper or way easier to go to work at the university, to go to work at a large electric company here in town and get paid more. And that's with all of our positions. There are better paying jobs out in the market, the public market, private market, and we need to continue to appreciate our employees. We've done probably the best we could. Usually we look at an increase, we look at a step increase, but we've got to look at that entry level. It is so important. And right now it's hard to hire anybody in any profession. And so we really need to take a look at our salary study. Maybe it's not fully comparable. I know that Michelle and myself and others have had discussions about that. It's not equal. You know, a position here may not be exactly the same as a position that may have the same title. You know, so we have to look at that. But we do need to take a look at our salaries and our wages, and we need to be respectful of people. Food is going up, everything is going up, fuel is going up, heating fuels are going up, and we can't expect people to get paid what they've gotten paid in the past and still be successful in life. So, you know, I don't disagree that we need to review Mr. Ford's position description or somebody else's position description. I just feel that we need to take a look at that salary survey. We paid money for that survey, and that money gave us documents that we can now start referring to. And I guess that would be my main priority as we move forward. We've got a process. We have buildings that need work. Obviously, our parking garage needs work, our county courthouse needs work, and we can't walk away from them either. These are prime pieces of property. I don't think that the judges want to be carrying, or the staff in the courthouse want to be carrying umbrellas with them, or determining which size of pail do we need to use to catch water that's coming on the top floor.
Right.
And we need to take care of it. We need to deal with these situations. We have people that need to park. You know, as we talk about Grand Forks, and we just recently attended the chamber event, and they did a beautiful job talking about Grand Sky. And they talked about needing 40 more people now at wages of $100,000 or more. And next year it could be 100. You know, this is great to bring new people into our community, but our community has grown. And we look at where housing used to be 10, 15 years ago and where housing is now. We're going to continue to grow. The county role may get bigger. When we built this building, I think it was 22 years ago, and it had extra room. We didn't need any more room. We had plenty of room. Hello. We built the County Correction Center, and it's not big enough anymore. Well, as a community grows, you have more and more people. Not everybody is following the laws like they're supposed to. They're breaking laws. And if you do the crime, you should pay the time. And that's the way it works. And as we need to house more criminals, and even our corrections at the state level is full, particularly in the area of women that need to be incarcerated. We need to follow the laws. If they break the laws, then they should be housed for breaking those laws, and hopefully learn from the mistakes that have been made and rehabilitate. That's the purpose why people go to incarceration. And we hope that that happens. When that jail was built, I'm sure they thought we have plenty of room. Not a problem. Hello. As our county grows, as more and more people come in for development, whether it's an egg facility, whether it's new businesses downtown or out on the south end. Have you been to the south end lately? There's more medical facilities than I have seen in a number of years, and I still don't know where everything is.
Right.
So I think that we really need to think about that. We've got some priorities that we need to deal with. The salary study needs to be looked at, and we can't kick the can down the road anymore. The buildings need to be cared for. We need to figure out, I don't want a rock hitting anybody in the head. I don't want a rock or a piece of concrete falling out of the parking facility, but people need a place to park, whether they're coming to work, whether they're coming in here for social services, for Northeast Human Services, they're to pay their taxes. Parking is not readily available around the Grand Forks area.
Right.
Downtown, it's full. There's lots of people that park outside of the ramp because they don't want to pay maybe they don't want to go to the second or third floor. They don't want to be off the main level, and those spots are full. But we need to continue to respect the fact that this is not our buildings. These are your buildings. If you live in Grand Forks County, you've paid your taxes. They were built with that money. Were they built to the best we possibly could know? Hindsight is 2020. And it's always 2020. We could always do a better job if we would have known this and that and the other thing. We don't. But we know this community is continuing to grow. How many times has the city of Grand Forks done another 2 miles and another 2 miles? It's because the community is growing, and that's a great thing. But we need to have places for people to park. We need to have places for people to go to court, no matter what the situation is. And if it's a jury trial, we need to have places for people in the jury to park. That's why we have it. That's why we built it up. And we weren't the only ones that did that. Lots of other communities have done that too. Unfortunately, we can go from -16 to 25 degrees tomorrow. It can happen. Ask Mr. West what happens to our roads and bridges when we go from one extreme temperature to another, or our sidewalks or whatever. This is where we live. This is our home community, and we need to take respect, and we need to have respect for our employees. It's not me that's grading the roads. It's not any of us that are out there doing the work that county employees need to do. It's not us that are figuring out if they qualify for medical assistance or food support, or who's going to get custody of this child or whatever. Those are the role of our county staff, our judicial system, and we have a great deal of respect for everyone. But priority number one needs to be taking care of our staff and taking care of our buildings where people are housed or where people park. And according to Mr. West, taking care of our roads and bridges. Even if it's a huge expense that would have bought more 3-4 years ago than it will today. Welcome to inflation. That's the way it works. But I have no problem with working with Mr. Ford's position description and making sure that it's accurate. That is the role of HR, and that's why we have an HR department.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll quit now and get off my soapbox.
Commissioner Hagan, comments, questions, topics?
I was gonna ask, how much did that study cost?
Michelle, do you remember?
Like a lot at the time, I don't recall the number.
So commissioners of the Administrative Services Committee, it was a twofold piece for this salary survey. We only did the first portion, which was just getting the raw data. So out of, I believe it was $10,000 we had set aside. It was approximately half of that. I don't have the number off the top of my head. The one other piece that I do need to clarify is we cannot do anything with the wages for anyone who's a human service zone employee. However, what can be done is just making sure that those who need to hear it at the state level understand that when they're going through right now and doing some compensation studies to make sure things are equitable, that they need to also include the zone employees, because it's written into the legislation that we don't get to control their wage. But at that point, we have raw data. The raw data is from the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, so it's not the most up to date. But the county association is also working with, I believe, Gallagher possibly this year to do things a little differently in their county salary survey that they typically do.
No, I agree with Cindy with the, when I first came on, I heard about the survey and Michelle reached out to me to, it was about looking at it, but I agreed to look at that for the employees. That I think is one of the concerns that I've heard. And I don't disagree with having a committee to come together to, Tom is obviously doing these things for us, and that's his role, I think, updating these to accurately describe what he is doing right now regardless. But you said all the things I was going to say. Yeah, I think that we need
Then
to
just put it down.
just-
Yeah. Question for Ms. Thiel. With respect to job descriptions, I know that you have worked on a number of different job descriptions in the different departments since you came on as HR and with Roberta. What is your feeling as to the updating of job descriptions in various departments?
One of the
Is it a major
pieces,
problem right now, or is it, you tell me?
one of the pieces that we did in preparation for the salary survey that we were going through before was reaching out to department heads, getting some drafts put together on different job descriptions. We have most of those, almost all of those are back. So it would be a matter of getting them back out to the managers and having them take another look at it. I will admit that the HR department, because we write everybody else's job descriptions, that one wasn't a top priority at that point. But it wouldn't take long to update since there's only 3 positions in my area. So I think that we would have a good base to start with. One of the challenges we have is also understanding that you're looking not at always at the title of a job, but you're also needing to look at the roles and responsibilities that title does. So it could be called something in our environment and called something somewhere else in comparisons, but yeah. So I think, we have those, we can send them out again to all the department heads to have them go through and review, but this did not include any zone employees because we can't do that there. That's all done by state HR.
Mr. Pete, do you have a question for Ms. Thiel?
I don't have a question for Ms. Thiel. I guess I have a question. Commissioner Ross, you were talking about having a committee, a specific committee. Were you talking about just Mr. Ford's position description or all as a whole?
Just Mr. Ford's right now.
Okay, one of the things when we are looking at position descriptions, I would like to request that the Administrative Services Committee is involved in all of that. Yes, that's going to involve all 5 of us probably, but I think that's the best way to move forward so that we all have an understanding when discussion is being held about position descriptions and salaries and wages. I would like all of us to be involved in that. I mean, it would make more sense because I don't want to see you two spending more time telling the 3 of us what the discussion is. I mean, even so that we know those meetings are being held for the committee so that we may attend to if we would prefer to
Oh,
or have time to.
It's sort of like how the Administrative Services Committee developed. It used to be just a couple of people going to the budget meetings with the managers. And it got to the point where we were all showing up. So the Administrative Services Committee is essentially the commission, although we operate as a committee and then bring things to the commission at regular meetings. So that makes sense to me too. Yeah. Anyone have comments you'd like to bring forth to the meeting today?
Yeah. Andy Schneider with Sheriff's Office, thank you for taking the time. I didn't plan on speaking, but this last discussion you just had doesn't make sense to me. Why do we have an HR? Their job is to review job descriptions for us and make sure that the duties align. I've had all of my job descriptions reviewed by HR prior to presenting them to the commission. So why do we have commissioners doing HR's job? You said it yourself, Commissioner Ross, and we all have full-time jobs for the most part. We're part-time. We make Tom Ford do stuff for us. You have 2 full-time HR people. Why are you gonna try to do their job for them? Doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't they review the job description? I mean, they do with the rest of the counties. Now you're gonna start reviewing everybody's job description in the county? that just doesn't make sense to me. A couple other notes that I took just for discussion and things that I noted while reviewing reclassified job descriptions. When I worked on the Vision Zero coordinator position for Grand Forks County, I worked on that with other counties that were working on it, along with HR. It's brought to the commission for review. You decide if you like it or not, and it's approved or denied. It shouldn't, I don't think that it's up to the commission to decide how much Mr. Ford should make if he's in a new position. HR categorizes them, they follow a process and procedure, and they grade it out. I mean, that's their job. That's what we paid them to do whenever you guys started hiring them. That's why I disagree with the committee to review his job description. That's HR's job. We should just let them to do it.
Mr. Snyder,
yes.
just 1 second. What this committee looks at is the things that he's doing. She will make the final decision on grade as far as what it should be paid to. I think it's important that those of us that have been around Mr. Ford for a long time have some input into this. I mean, you can disagree all you want, but this committee is going to work with Ms. Thiel and with the Haley Wamstead to come up with some, and then she'll make the final determination.
You asked for comments, and that's just what I'm providing.
Okay,
So looking at that position as well, a little bit into last year, Mr. Ford, and I'm not picking on him, but these are his comments that he made. Mr. Ford requested an administrative assistant because he was overworked and it was affecting various aspects of him. So he was granted a position, which is now Gracie fulfills that position, to take a load off of his work to help with Grand Sky, Grant Ready, and help all these other people do things. If he was overworked then and he got a position, now we're trying to promote him into another position to add more work. I've had to do it myself. We've been asked to be on committees, chairs of different things, help out with other boards. Sometimes you just have to say no if it's in the best interest of the committee or the county. And, you know, if it's going to affect county business and we keep adding more and more and more to the plate, when are we going to take care of the people at the bottom? You said you fight for our salaries. The only fight that I've seen is we do a COLA and a step. You don't address individual entities or departments. What are we waiting for? The whole reason that this salary study came about is because I requested a special commission meeting years ago and outlined over 20 agencies, departments in the county and neighboring counties showing their salaries and their benefits compared to the sheriff's office. And I was told by Commissioner Falk at the time, that's a great idea. Let's do a county salary study. Well, since that time, Walsh County is now making over $5,000 a month more than our starting deputies because we're not doing anything and they're doing something to retain people. They're up to $55,000 starting salary for deputies in Walsh County, North Dakota. That's pretty hard to recruit unless people really want to work at the sheriff's office in Grand Forks County. And so that's the type of environment that we try to provide. I do agree that we do need to address the bottom end. I've had coffee with Mr. Ford, former Commissioner Falk, and we've talked about it. The people that are in leadership positions here don't really plan on going anywhere, to the best of our knowledge. Are we worried about trying to make the high ends pay, earn more money? I've never requested a salary increase once in any of my salary studies for myself. It's always for the people below me. Because if we don't have people to do our work for us, below us, that affects the top end and we can't do the job that we're supposed to efficiently. Why are we not addressing this more effectively? Right now, sergeants, according to the raw data on the salary study, sergeants, which I'm not worried about going anywhere, are 10.8% under the median cost. Corporals, 13.99% under the median cost. Deputies are 14.7% under the median cost, and investigators, which I'm not worried about going anywhere, are 16.2% under the median. The deputies that are 14.7% under are the ones I'm worried about. I just hope that the county commission, instead of adding more duties and roles and responsibilities to an individual entity and addressing that, starts looking at the bottom. The jail is how many short today, Brett? 12 to 16. Last count I heard, I believe when I talked to them a couple days ago, they're starting jailers. That's the stuff that keeps the county going. We can't afford to close the jail, right? If you don't have jailers to work, we're gonna have to start looking at something different. So Those are just a few of the notes that I took. I would, like I said, you're looking for comments and I just felt that I had to come up and talk about them. I mean, maybe we need to look at HR's description. I thought it was their job to write job descriptions, but I could be wrong on that. So thank you for your time.
Do taxpayers get to talk?
Good.
Is that what it? It's still like
Can't hear.
what people are being paid, is that salary study, is that not what you meant by?
Yeah.
Looking at the description, so we could figure out how we're gonna pay for it, so we can get them more. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page, thank you.
And obviously the question is how do we pay for
Right,
these things?
right.
As those of us who've been through the budget process and you managers, you know what the budget process is like when we have a fixed, it's like we're on a fixed income. It goes up each year because of the valuation of property in the county. But we have tried to hold the mill levies down until this year when we had no choice and had to bond for the jail and those sorts of things. So it is a constant battle, and I, for one, when people ask me what it's like in the county, is I say, we have the best managers, the best staff. The county runs like a Swiss watch. We just show up for meetings now and then and have to vote on things occasionally. You guys do it all. I really wish we had lots of funds available to take care of this. And that's what we've got to start working on. And we tried to start working on it 2 years ago. But there were some other priorities that came up. It wasn't the high salaries of anybody else. It was buildings and that sort of thing. So we are trying to break that cycle somehow. So this is a start.
Mr. Chair, if I may, can you guys hear me?
Oh, that's why he's not
I didn't
here.
know Commissioner Rusted was on there. I didn't see it on the screen.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, I couldn't make it. I didn't want to be the typhoid Mary that single-handedly took out the whole county. So,
Thanks.
and you don't want what I got right now, trust me. You know, I agree with a lot of Andy Schneider, Sheriff Schneider, excuse me, his points about you know, why a committee when there's HR involved. I don't hate the idea of a committee, but then it kind of branches out to, or are you looking at every single position rather than just the one that's designated for today? And I think pretty much everyone in the room knows my comfort level with elevating somebody I've, you know, only got 2 months of exposure to. And it's absolutely nothing against Mr. Ford whatsoever. It's just, I don't do, you know, in my personal business, I don't operate like that. I could never just meet somebody for 2 months and make them the boss of everybody. Now, granted, that's been changed and kind of whittled away at. So now, you know, he wouldn't be overseeing the department heads. So, I mean, that's increased my comfort level, but it certainly doesn't have me over the moon, because it's, to me, I don't understand what the sense of urgency is. You know, if he knocks it out of the park, probably you'd get no pushback. It just, the time frame is too short of exposure to him. And so that's why I kind of from the beginning, and I tried to make that motion last week that, you know, we just open it up and let the best candidate win with a committee. It doesn't appear there's an appetite for that. Would have rather seen it go down in a vote than kind of get ushered away. At least then I'd have some sense of they're beyond the record for it, because I certainly don't get the sense that the county leadership and the citizenry as a whole are real. I think they don't see it as fair competition, I guess. And so, I mean, I like it better now, you know, after I think it was Chairman Ross that whittled away at that. And certainly from my standpoint, that's better. But, you know, I'm just one guy with one opinion, but it's to me, it still seems too urgent and too rushed. But I'll let you guys continue on.
Mr. Chair, can I make a point of clarification? So the sheriff said, why are you adding more responsibilities to me? Again, I'm asking the commission to review and encompass the responsibilities that have been added that are not included in the current job description. I think that's important clarification.
We started this discussion a couple of years ago. Chairman Falk last year was talking about these things too. And most departments don't have things continually added. So whether Mr. Ford gets a change in title or even a raise is not as material as just having that position described as to what is expected. If Mr. Ford at some point won't be around, he'll take a better job or he'll retire or whatever happens, that people move through. This job description needs to be written for what needs to be done by someone when we commissioners can't take care of it all. And most of you have, if you're a department head, you've got plenty going on in your department. But we've got lots of departments and 300 plus employees. So there's all kinds of other things that could fall through the crack if we weren't somehow taking care of them. So it's not necessarily a title, or he probably would like more money, but we may not give him any more money. We just need to describe what he's doing. And the same with your people in your departments, including yourselves. So that's why I asked Ms. Thiel, you know, how things stood with other descriptions, and apparently I knew she was pretty much on top of that. But
I'll ask again, do taxpayers get to talk?
What?
Are taxpayers allowed to talk at this meeting, give their comments?
you're the chair of the commission.
Well, you've never been short of words, Terry. Come on up.
Thank you. Terry Bierke, 1594 Philippi Road, beautiful outside of Manville. Couple comments. I'm going to comment on some couple of comments. I'm going to keep it short, so I think, and I'll get to the main point. The same inflation your employees are paying, the same inflation every taxpayer in this county is paying. Number two, every year I move the county, the value of my house has gone up. I'm sure I'm lucky. So we are paying more every year at the county. I'm paying it. On top of the value you get from that, every building that the value goes up, you also get all new growth from the different buildings that come along too. So you get that too. I'll just give one example. Maybe if there really were 3,000 people at Grand Sky, because some of us have been around long enough, remember what former commissioner said to the public? There were going to be 3,000 people out there. They're at the trough right now at the state. I don't know, 14 million they're asking for now again. Maybe if the state paid the counties a few more million and quit giving a bunch of handouts to people who have gotten handouts every year they've been open from the local and state governments for their entire lifetime, maybe they should start paying their own bills. And then the money we pay to the state tax could help you build jail. Side note on that. And then in closing, I've heard differing on this job from what I heard from the beginning. My comment on it, if it's just a change in the job description, that's what it is. But if you're opening a job up, it is clearly improper to open a job up, a new job, and not take applications. So if this is a job description change as opposed to a new job, I understand that. But if it is a new job, it will look improper if it is not opened up for, I don't care who's sitting there. This is not a comment on Mr. Ford. My best friend could be sitting there and I'd say it right to his face too.
To clarify that point, I, for one, asked him a year ago to write down the things that he's doing that he wasn't doing 2 years ago and last year and so on, to get the job description to be what he is doing. We're not suggesting adding more things to his position or anything beyond that.
Okay, well, that needs me. I just want to make sure that was clear because
That's fine.
there's a big difference between a job description change and a new job.
Yes,
Because then, like I said, I don't care who's sitting there, you have to open it up. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Right, we're specifically right now just going to review job descriptions. We're not going to, because I just want to make sure, like, because the position description, obviously, we give him a different description, and this is like written in, he's going from a different pay grade, that I think that's what most people are concerned about, that we're gonna give it and it's gonna automatically bump him up.
That's really
Without
an
looking
HR
at the-
question.
That's an
without
HR
the
call.
Salaries, surveys and stuff, because again, I don't,
May not necessarily be the case.
right, and that's, I just wanna make it clear, that's what we're doing.
Well, and that, Commissioner Hagan, that also leads to a question that I had. So when you're grading a position, you never know what the grade will be until the position description or the job description is done. Then we have a classification system that we run all of our job descriptions through. And so once we would review and update the job description for the Director of Administration, then there would be a decision made, what do we call this position? And if there's a drastic enough change, then you would look at whether or not it's just reclassifying a current position or whether it's something totally different. That, I don't know if it would make a change to the grade or not. So my question that I have is, I kind of got out of this in my notes that we have two things going on. One, you want the entire Admin Services Committee to be involved or updated with updated job descriptions for the entire county. The other piece I understood was that there would be this 4-member committee that we would just be looking at updating the job description to make sure it matches what Mr. Ford is currently doing. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to make sure I'm doing the right job.
I think that's what you had in mind, wasn't it, Commissioner Hagan?
Right, that, I mean, just to make sure that we're not just
Is that,
classifying and, or like giving,
Right.
opening the new job and like giving it to somebody. If we're opening a new job, then it needs to be open.
And I don't know if it's a new job because we haven't gone through that process. But with these 4 people, are we only discussing the Director of Administration position? And then the entire admin services would be involved with the rewrites and the re-evaluations of all the rest of the positions? That's my question. Is it one thing or 2 things?
well, you've already done that, haven't you? Haven't you?
We have them all in draft. They were done in 2021. We
Okay.
will have to send them out to the department
Okay.
heads to make
Well,
sure.
when you get done with that, then the entire
So that
administrative
will be
services, the entire
separate from
commission,
these 4 people. That's what I wanted to make sure.
correct.
Because that process is going to take a bit of time to do all
Sure
the,
will.
all the specific jobs.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Rusted, anything further from you?
No, I have nothing further. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
We're gonna get sick of the phone.
Anybody else on,
Comments for everybody out there?
Haley?
Yeah.
The attorney? Anybody else in the audience?
Make a motion on this committee to do.
Well, are we still going to use a committee? We just plan, what is,
We just want to make sure that all his responsibilities, which you and I are familiar with.
Oh,
We're so-
with respect to that particular job.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioner Ross, I certainly did not want to imply that we know more than the HR department. They know what they're doing, they know how to rate them.
Yeah.
I think it was more from my perspective, was talking about the payroll study, what's affordable, what's not affordable, how do we move forward on that? It's good to have position descriptions reviewed on an ongoing basis, not every year, but occasionally, because things do change. Expectations change, systems change. And so I certainly did not mean that we would be working with HR on a step-by-step basis,
No,
but to review them and to have more discussion on the pay and how we go forward in that.
Yep.
Because we know that entry level is a concern for many departments, and that's really what we need to address first.
okay.
Well, so how are we gonna handle the, this is the only job description that has changed so much along the way that I can think of. There might be more.
Well, the rest, apparently the other department heads have already done theirs. They just need to put it together. Is that correct?
So we have job descriptions that are in draft form where department heads were given the old job descriptions for their department. They added or subtracted certain things, so we have a draft. We did not go through and reclassify every one of those positions at that time. We do have a couple of positions in the county where their job description, their current job descriptions may not match the responsibilities that they now have because they're different than they were before. So Mr. Ford's situation is not totally unique to all the department heads in the county. There's a couple of, I can think of two more that are different. So we would need, you know, depending on how you want to handle those, or if you want to just put, you know, when we go through all of them, regrade every single position once the drafts are done to see if there's a compensation change, because it doesn't always mean there's a compensation change just because you've updated the job.
Okay, so when you do the final drafts on those, you should be able to put the grade with it, right? Because we would not be doing that. We would
Correct.
just review what you did.
Correct, and
Okay.
it never got to that point because we got the draft information from the consultant and then
Okay.
everything stopped. So
Okay,
when there's, you know, the amount of work people have to put in, this is a daunting task. This is not something that's.
oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
So,
So are these job descriptions, you said you gave these to the department heads and then they basically put in what they have been
correct, and some,
doing over the past 12 months?
and
that is what-
some department heads said no change. And we looked at it and went, that's not, it can't be that
Okay.
because.
Just I want to make sure
Yeah.
there was oversight that these are all the things that I do. And
Right,
really, you know.
And just because there's a list of the 15 tasks they do, we then said, okay, these are administrative tasks and they're covered. We would say something along the lines of responsible for maybe financial reporting. Does not mean that we put in there that they run this report this month and this report every quarter and this report. So it's building a more modernized job description. So.
Because Andy had made a point about like, just like, these are the things that I do, but some of them, like, maybe you shouldn't be doing these things. These are not
Right,
your job
and
role.
it's not up to me to
and-
determine
right,
whether or
okay, I
not,
just wanted to make
and
sure.
that's kind of the same with this situation with Mr. Ford. He has, we are aware that there's a lot of additional tasks. Not up to me to make the determination whether or not that task should fall under that job description. I will use an example of our juvenile detention administrator role used to be the county risk manager. Those responsibilities have now been shifted. They're not currently reflected in the job descriptions of the two other departments that now are doing risk management. So those kinds of updates would have to go in there.
This the one thing that you just brought something up, shelter care. Juvenile detention had called me today about their shelter care job description. Have you been working on that one at all?
I have been trying desperately to gather information about building a job description. There is no job description for a shelter care administrator that we can
But
find.
they told you what the
Because-
responsibilities were for that job, correct?
We have some of the information,
Yeah,
yes.
yep.
Yes, and it has not been built yet because I haven't been able to sit down and do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I told them I would ask you the question.
Would it be helpful to you in creating it and updating that job description for those of us on the committee who are familiar with everything Mr. Ford does, would be helpful for you, for us to help with that process. And how about the other ones you said that have significant changes? Should we take a role in assisting with that, or are these things all things you can just manage?
One of the pieces that with the Director of Administration job description, what would make it easiest for me would be if there was a committee that determined whether or not you need to create a new position. Or the committee chooses, we're not looking to create a new position, we're looking to update the current position.
All right, okay.
Okay, because to me, those are two different things. There is a difference between a county administrator and all the levels of authority that could go with that, or updating the Director of Administration job description, and does that entail some other type of a title change? I don't know. That decision ultimately has to fall on the commission. I have information on different pieces that where I can sit down and I can go, okay, this is how it is in the current job description. These are the additional responsibilities. Are they one-time things? Are they ongoing things? But I don't know what level of authority you're looking to get this position. So that piece I don't know.
Yeah.
In other counties, when they have had very high level positions, what they have done is they have had a committee that is not building a job description. That committee is determining, does the county need this position? One of the counties I've dealt closely with and I've had conversations with had a position where they had one commissioner on their committee that fully supported putting a new position in place. The other commissioner was someone who had some reservations, and so they wanted that kind of feedback as well, so that they can make sure that they're capturing all of the information. They did not just take and build a new job or update somebody's job description. So I don't know what process, because ultimately it's up to you guys. As far as all the other job descriptions and things, the biggest challenge we're going to have is 300 and some employees with 2 HR people. That's the biggest challenge right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, Lou.
Lou with the Veteran Service Office. In our job descriptions, it has a comment, a statement in there that says performs other duties as assigned to a parent. To me, that would cover probably a majority of these for this position, I would think. I would like some clarification on that as we move forward with these other job descriptions. Because if we keep adding these different tasks and duties for different job descriptions, we can end up with 10 pages of job descriptions for each position. I don't know if that's actually necessary. I agree with the sheriff's comments on the goal from the bottom up versus this position that's been reclassified. It's nothing for the person that's in the position. It's actually for the position itself. If it's been reclassified several times, I think we've already worked on that one enough. And I agree with the sheriff again, that the comments he made earlier about the salary survey being something that we need to look at.
Thank you. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? No, Amber.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, when doing this structure, or this classification of this job, would it also be possible to show an organizational chart to see how everybody falls in line when you're doing that?
I think that's probably a good idea. I don't think we've ever had an organizational chart here in Grand Forks County. But yeah, we have one at the sheriff's office, don't we, Andy?
Yep.
And again, I also agree with Sheriff Schneider that it'd be great to get the lower paid people some more money. I think
We all agree with that one.
We all agree, Amber,
my
with that. We all do.
office would be the same way. And are we gonna talk about each? So one position gets reclassified, but what if others are ready to go? I mean, my department's done. Where do we decide whose department needs work and whose department doesn't need work? I'm sure Andy's is ready to go.
Need to work on job descriptions.
Right,
you
once
mean, or
the
on
job descriptions are
classification?
ready.
I think that was to come from the managers to the HR department.
Yep,
I would say.
correct.
I mean, it's the managers who know what's going on within their program, but working closely with the HR department.
But okay. Stay here, Amber. This is my questions for you. So when you say you're, with yours being ready to go, I think what I understand is then what's the next step for
Right,
Amber's
right.
department? Because then is it, okay, we come before the commission and we say that we've reclassified, but wondering what the next step is as far as looking at the change compensation. Because if currently we have grades and steps, and we have an old, a way or a process, but how do we make a change
Right,
to the compensation for her departments? Because if we're looking at it department by department, is that the way you want to move forward? Or do you want to look at all the entry level positions? That's something that's gonna have to come, from you guys. We never got that far with the original salary survey information that came in. There were a couple of recommendations about shifting the entire scale or not. But we don't have a compensation program put together right now that we could just plug current applications in. And that's something that would need probably another committee, and we would need to have some commissioners be involved in that. So
Seems
that
to me that we
kind of go
have
through
to
it.
have more than one or two departments that are ready.
Right,
So on these, especially on these lower level employees that we're trying to recruit and keep, we almost have to look at the whole thing at once because it's gonna be a lot of money. And how we're gonna do that. So, but the sooner the better,
Right.
And then you're gonna look at compression too, so.
yeah.
Because it's not only gonna affect the people on the lower end.
it is not an easy process.
It is not.
It is not take the lowest levels and give them all a certain dollar amount
Right.
unless, and in our current process where we have grades and steps, it's very rigid. There's not a lot of movement, but so that's something else to consider. So
one more thing, and your committee for this position is just for that position. You aren't gonna be a committee for all of the different departments.
We would never get it done.
No.
It would have to be administrative services.
Yeah.
I would say.
The rest of them will go
That's
on
what
to
I'm
you
saying,
guys.
right? It's just
Right.
for.
And the meetings that you guys have about it will be open.
Yeah.
Yes, oh, definitely.
And, Mr. Chair, I'm the commissioner over HR. I'll be more than happy to meet with Michelle and others to discuss how we move forward and what steps are, how. Because I mean, it's kind of hand in hand. There has to be some determination or some discussion, not to say that whatever, but others, a series of suggestions
Sure.
in moving forward to bring to the commission.
Joe Snyder, looks like you got something to
Sure,
say.
Chairman Engen and members of the committee, when you talk about compression, you are correct, but it can be done. When I proposed the salary increase for the deputies a couple of years ago that shot into gear this current salary study that we're talking about, there was all of these numbers were worked out and they were double checked, but a $5,000 starting salary increase for deputies at that time with increases distributed throughout the scale, meaning 6% between each step, and 3%
Each grade.
each grade and 3% between each step. That increased, deducting, what the county had approved for COLAs and steps. That would have cost about an extra $143,000 for the sheriff's office to deal with the compression. And that's 40, at the time it was 42 employees. So it can be figured out. I shouldn't say I didn't do anything but write down the numbers.
And I believe when I was sheriff, I did the same thing. I had compression issues, but I still got some of the salaries up.
So that would address, so it wasn't just the bottom getting 5,000, it was the
Sure.
people that got there 2 years, 3 years, it was working all the way through.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't there a way for us to be able to like get this done and like put it in a timeline, like we're gonna do these departments or however it's gonna be and like it's gonna be done in the next 12 months or 18 months and then we can budget it in?
You know,
I think that, I mean, just so we can get it done. I feel like this has been going on for so long. I'm guessing
I
it's
think
been
we
going
need
on
to-
a couple
I think
years.
we need to prioritize.
Yeah.
What operations are gonna cost and what other things that are other agencies that we support, maybe can't support anymore, that we take care of our own, so.
And I totally agree with that. I think I've heard this discussion a few times about paying more people and going back to this survey, but we just keep having more meetings and it just doesn't get done. Like, we need to get it done, whatever the timeline, call it 12 months, and then we take it in increments, so, or however we want to do it, but we need to put a date on it so it gets done.
Yeah.
I really agree.
Yeah. Right.
Anybody else? Motion to adjourn? Moved. Second? All in favor?
All right.
Opposed?
Look at all those retirees sitting back there just chomping away.